It's a magical time. The women spend up to 4 months breeding, birthing, and nursing their young.
So the gentle piano music.
The whales are gentle.
You can. That's crazy shit, isn't it? What if there was whales but in outer space?
There's something that's so strong.
Waffaletta. What's the difference between the Waffaletta and the woods? Because honestly, to me, they're the same thing. I don't really know how to differentiate.
Oh, right. Some of my classes got like 6.
8. Oh, okay, so you're gonna lose me. Try to pay attention. So, my skills class is 1 month, so August to September. So the first month is skills. Then from then to December is clinical, but it's only to December 10th. Okay, so first month of that is skills, and then clinical for only to the 10th. Then I have my 109 class, which is the first day of school, the earliest one, to December 15th. So clinical ends before that class. But my 110 class, which is the other classroom one, starts the same day as that one I just said, but it ends November 24th. So I'm going to have a month of skills, and then clinical to the 10th, and then I'm going to have, before that skills class even starts, I'm going to have the first class all the way through to the 15th, but I'll have finished clinical a week before that. But the other classroom one will be finished a month before that. So I'm going to finish one class in the first month, and then I'll only have 3 classes until November, and then I'll have 2 classes, one of them being clinical, so 1 class on clinical until December 10th, and then those last 5 days I only have 1 class. I know. I'm like, why do you have to do it? Oh, and the other thing is, orientation for clinical doesn't start until 2 weeks after clinical starts. I know. I'm like, they've never done that. Because this past semester, it was the first thing we ever did for the semester was our clinical orientation. Because they're like, oh, welcome to second semester. Like, go to your clinical site. And now it's like, okay, you've been in school for over a month. You've been in clinical for 2 weeks. Now here's your orientation. I know. I'm like, this has got to be some crackhead shit right here.
And then the spring, you only have clinical?
No, spring is, I think it's the same thing where I have 2. I don't think we have a skills. I think it's 3 classrooms and then a clinical. Yeah. But it's like, oh, here's how to transition into being a nurse. Here's how to talk to a doctor. Oh, I also have some. You ready? So Caleb called me. You missed a lot today. Okay, a lot of shit happened. Also, the doctor asked me about my stroke. He's like, explain what happened. And I was like, he's like, do you have any lasting effects, like left or right side weakness? And I said, no, I'm totally fine. And he was like, well, you don't have anything left over from it? And I said, no, twice now. And then he goes, no, I mean you don't have numbness on one side. And I said, no, you've asked me this 3 times now. What do you want me? I was about to start going, I'm like, what the fuck do you want me to say?
Well, do you have lasting
right.
damage?
I know. I'm like, I said no. And so then he's like, oh, that's pretty cool. And I said, yeah, I would agree. You don't say, fucking asshole. And so this was after they made me do a drug test, but I didn't know I was going to have a drug test. So I didn't have to pee. And so I'm like, well, I didn't really pee that much. She's like, just pee as much as you can. And I'm sitting there. And she's like, Emily, how's it going? I'm like, I peed like hardly any, but it worked. And so she didn't find out about my drugs. So then
Good that you studied.
Right. So, then, they didn't do my tuberculosis thing. So what they wanted me to do was they wanted me to get this one, come back on Thursday to get the second reading of it, and then they wanted me to make another appointment after that
For school.
to get another one for school, and then come back again to read that one. And I'm like, and pay for that. And I'm like, I'm here doing the test. Can you not just also write your name on this piece of paper? Like, that's all I need you to do. So I'm gonna just. I think it's bullshit. And she's like, no, we can't do that. You're gonna have to come back and pay. And I'm like, I'm not going to. Fuck you guys. I would have fucking signed it. Because the girl, when she got my flu shot for work, she signed my school one. So I'm like, you guys are off your ass. Anyways,
Were you guys brothers there though with the whole school? I mean, you're all nurse brothers, right? I have a brother out.
Well, right. I'm like, dude. And then they're like, oh, what are you going to school for? And I'm like, nursing? I'm a fucking LPN right now. It was dumb. It was super dumb, but that's the gist of it. Anyways, so Kayla called me, and so there's this girl she's been kind of talking shit to me about, and she was like, who goes to school with us, and she's like, yeah, like, she works here too, but, like, we're all trying to train her, but she's just not really getting it, like, she kind of sucks, like, you would think she didn't even go to nursing school, like, she's just not getting it. And I'm like, well, I mean, she's because she's not a CNA, like, so she's never worked in a hospital.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
So she's like, I just don't really understand, but I'm like, you've also had your CNA clinical and 2 RN clinicals. I'm like, it's the same shit, you're just doing it without a teacher, but it's like, you still have, the charge and whatever, so I'm like, figure it out. Well, today Kayla calls me, and she's like, yeah, so you know that one girl that nobody likes? And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, she never got her license. She never even applied. Because everybody was like, yeah, like, she sucks to train. And so then they looked into her license, because everybody was complaining about her. Never applied for Temp 1, never applied to take your test, never got anything. She's been practicing without a license. She's worked there for a couple months. And so they said, you are banned from coming here. I would have to ask Kayla again, but I think she said she's banned from working as an LPN, but they were like, you fucked up. And I'm like, she should be banned from nursing school. She was breaking the law by practicing without a license. That is illegal. I'm like, she should be kicked out of nursing school. She should be pressed charges. I'm like, this is really fucking bad. And
go to nurse jail.
Right.
Or CNA.
But I'm like, I'm just like, and Kayla said, she's like, why did you do that, basically? And she's like, I didn't know I needed one. And I'm like, they asked you for it when you got interviewed. Because I know, because I just had that happen. I'm like, they asked you. And then she's like, well, I didn't know I needed to get it. And I'm like, oh, so you think that you could be a fucking doctor right now? They don't need a license, and they just let anybody in, apparently. Like, you're so fucking stupid. How did you get this far? I know, and I'm like, that is really, really bad. And so she called Kayla crying. She's like, they just fired me. And I'm like, no shit. I told Kayla, I'm like, did you laugh in her face? That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. So it looks like, fall 2020 total. Spring 2021 total. I don't know why they gave me such a low number the first time. But
I'm surprised Joe's been.
This is my, award letter. This isn't even the thing. This is my award. Yeah! Joe.
I know it's you.
Yeah, so. That sounds so good. What would a shark do for a mouthful of whale?
What struck me was just how patient, just how strategic Ellen was when she was going about it. She wasn't trying to eat, she was trying to weaken, she was trying to slow down, she was trying to slowly overcome this way before even considering feeding.
That's funny. When the doctor suggests a fluid bolus, but I've already given one while I was waiting on them to call me back. Sounds good. Doesn't work. That's hilarious.
A washed up compass reveals just how difficult it is for a shark to get the better of a whale. This tail is one of the main power forces of any combat whale. It can literally poke one of the whales, 40-ton whale, 18 meters out of the water. So, even for the biggest, strongest great white shark, if it took him off by one of these, it's a typical shark. What was clear was, on that big whale, the first place the great white targeted was right here on the tail, on the keel. And the idea is, I reckon what you here to see it, is that these big veins that go here provide energy to this muscle. With the white shark targeting this area here, essentially what it could do is open up a